Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Big East Rewind. I'm Chuck Everson, your 7-foot host, and my partner, as always, the good doctor from Syracuse University, Sonny Sparrow. How are you today, Sonny?
Chuck, I'm doing great. We had a good weekend. We had a little Coach Jim Boeheim day.
I was going to ask you about that. I was going to ask you, how many guys showed up for that?
Over 50.
Well, that's good.
Now the guys, he's coached in 5 decades, right? So
well, that's 10 per decade, if my math is right.
It's pretty unbelievable. And there was a little representation from every decade, which was nice.
That is good. That's good. What did they have, like ceremony on the court, or?
Yeah, they did it afterwards, and Mike Tirico hosted it, and they had some video productions, and Gino Auriemma had just a hysterical video. Oh my god, so funny. Yeah. I mean, and people don't realize that with the USA basketball, he and Gino were very tight, as was Jamie Dixon, as was everybody knows about Coach K, but he had a lot of relationships through USA basketball.
Yeah.
And his comment was, you know how everybody considers him whiny and complaining and never happy? Well, it's true. And then he went on, because everybody was just spouting love, and then he just started busting his chops. It was pretty funny. Stuck out.
That's great. I'm glad the university recognized,
yes.
his
did a first class event too, Chuck.
He's one of those guys that was his loyalty and everything else. He stayed there for how many years was he there? For he played, he coached the golf team, he coached basketball. It was unbelievable.
He got there in '62 and never left.
And he just left. Yeah, right.
Never
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, Sonny, today we got a good show today. A buddy of ours
is
here with us, another media guy. This guy was a 3-time National Sports Media Association State of Wisconsin Sportscaster of the Year. He also won 2 Emmys, Sonny. I think it's the first time we've had an Emmy winner on the might be the first time.
Let's run with it, man. Let's run with it.
He does Big East play-by-play on Fox Sports and is the voice of the Seattle Mariners. From the city of brotherly love, Sonny, Philadelphia's own Dave Sims. How are you, Dave?
Sonny, Chuck, good to see you guys. Philly proud, man.
How are you, buddy?
Philly proud. I'm doing well, thanks. How you guys doing?
Philly proud.
All right. Doing all right.
Where's your favorite cheesesteak?
You taking time with us today.
Where's your favorite cheesesteak?
D'Alessandro's in Roxborough.
I knew you were going to say that.
Okay, let me ask you a question about that. Now that you said that, Dave, D'Alessandro's, they make their cheesesteaks like upside down, right? Don't they?
I don't know how they do it. I don't eat many cheesesteaks over these last few years.
Yeah,
but
right.
when I did, because we're from that area, went to school at Chestnut Hill. That was the closest and the best place. So for me, I mean, I tell people, Geno's and Pets, respectfully, they do a hell of a job, and I think the national media, they always think of them. But matter of fact, most recently, the most recent Villanova game I did, that Sunday game a couple of weeks ago against Providence. And the producer, of course, went to the obligatory shot of, Pats and Geno's. I said, as a proud Philadelphian, let me tell you something. It's D'Alessandro's, pal.
Little shout out. It's great.
You could tell you're from Philly when you say that, because people that don't know always say Pats and Geno's for sure. That's
yeah.
Well, it's easy because they're across the street.
Over that, Sonny.
Yeah, well, they're across the street from each other, right? It just makes sense. And the obligatory, it's easy.
Well, I think Rocky really promoted the Pat Steaks thing. There's a brick there or something that Sylvester Stallone stood here during the filming of Rocky or something. I don't know. And he's not even a real character. He's a fictional character. But people in Philadelphia swear he's real.
That's a great point. I used to rail when I was on that, when that statue went up, and I think I was still at FAN. And I say, wait a minute. Joe Frazier, flesh and blood. I know he was born in South Carolina, but he worked at Cloverley Gym on Broad Street, right near North Philly Station.
Yep.
Then getting more Philly than that. I mean, he was a heavyweight champion. Hey, good for Stallone. He made a lot of money, represented Philly well, Rocky, but he's a fictitious character. Come on.
Somebody figured it out, Dave, because they gave Joe a statue at the Xfinity Center, right in the sports complex there. So,
nice.
In front of that big sports bar place, there's a great shot of
Joe. And I think it happened before he passed too, which was good.
Yeah,
so,
which was nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Philly does things right. You know that, Dave. It's a tough town, that's for sure. I could tell you.
Most passionate sports town in the country.
I could tell you firsthand. So let's jump into this. You know, you started out yeah, from Philly, growing up in Philly. You went to school at Bethany, right? And played
Right.
played some football.
Yeah, 1 year, and then one of the smartest decisions I ever made. About halfway through, I was en route to finishing third in the conference in kickoff returns. I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore. Why? To what end? You know,
Right.
it's not going to help me professionally when I get, when and if I graduate, which I did, and I knew I wanted to be in sports media.
So were you the journalist major or at school?
Yeah,
Or?
I had mass communications, and the biggest break I got an internship after my sophomore year at the Inquirer. So
Oh, nice.
I'm covering pro soccer and filling in here and there, doing a little copy desk kind of stuff. And man, that was again life changing. And I was one of 13 or 14 kids from around the country, easily from the smallest school. And I think probably the only black guy in that group. And then
Right.
I hit it off with all the boys in the sports department. Tim Kelly was sports editor. He says, we're not having this program this year, but we'd love to have you back. I said, I'm there. What time do I report? I'll see you next June.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
so can I ask you? I mean, you said only black reporter. What was it like to kind of break some of those barriers?
Dude, I've been breaking barriers my entire freaking career in that regard. I mean, it, I'm lucky. I've not run into vicious segregation. I mean, it's usually, sly undercutting,
Yeah,
that kind of
backdoor
stuff.
racism, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
But my whole life my whole career has been in that realm. I mean, a lot of guys I grew up with, oh, you're never going to be a sportscaster. You're never going to do play by play. You're never going to, screw that. And I went the other way, and here I am.
Yeah. I mean, so now you go from there, right? You get your first real gig at the Daily News in New York, right? Now, when you were there, were you working with Ed Kirkman and those guys in the sports department?
That name's not familiar. Did he? Actually, you're from Long
And
Island, right? So,
yeah, well, Ed, the reason I mentioned that is, the guy loved me because in high school, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have got recruited by anybody because everything I did anything, he had it in the Daily News,
he
and
must have been a Long Island correspondent or something, because yeah, I didn't know many. I knew all the guys that worked out of Manhattan.
right,
From Dick Young, Phil Pepe,
right.
Norm Miller, and yet that whole crew. And I'm trying to remember the high school guy, Bill.
Bill, I was going to ask, and I can't think of his name.
Yeah,
He did
yeah,
Nassau, and Eddie
right.
did the Suffolk County guys.
There you go. So
Yeah,
that
I'm
that was
just
that was
curious.
my deal, man. I had a good run there, 7 years. I got coming from Little Bethany College, and the first black guy in the sports department at the Daily News. And as a friend of mine later said, so they basically threw you in the deep end and told you to swim out, and that's
Yeah,
about it.
and
Yeah,
you've been doing that ever since, though, Dave.
you got it.
Yeah,
And
I
Yeah.
mean,
anybody mentor you or reach out like that? That kind of like, like
Not
recognize it.
not really until probably broadcast. I got into broadcasting, and I got a chance to work it. And you guys are old enough to remember Marty Glickman.
Oh
sure.
gosh,
And
yeah, Syracuse guy,
yeah, exactly. And
Syracuse guy.
yeah, check that box. And that was probably uh, he and Art Rush Jr. Remember Art used to have this sports
Sure.
talk show on
He was a
WABC.
big boxing guy. That was his big
Oh,
thing.
huge, huge,
Huge
yeah,
boxing
huge.
guy.
Yeah, no question. He knew. I mean, he could recite chapter and verse the listing of heavyweight champ, probably every weight, because that time we only
Yeah.
talked about 8 weights or something. But Marty was a great mentor, and he mentored a lot of guys of our generation. Starting with Marv, and then straight through Marv Albert. He was a big impact on me. And again, growing up in Philly, I listened to all those guys down there, Bison, Bill Campbell, Harry Callis. Those guys, they didn't know it, but they were influencing me as well. Same with Gene Hart, the hockey announcer.
Yeah, Gene Hart was great.
Well, how about Marty Glickman's story with the Jesse Owens and the track over there in Nazi Germany?
Boy,
Okay, so the question is like with Marty Glickman and what he dealt with in the Olympics, right? So he had to have some form of
Yeah,
understanding.
I mean, if you see the documentary that HBO did on him, it has his entire story growing up in New York, and I was in Brooklyn, and all the way, one of the greatest influencing sportscasters, first jock turned sportscaster, and his story at the '36 Olympics, he and Sam Stoller, two Jewish guys, and they were denied an opportunity to run on a 4x100, and Jesse Owens said, "Hey, I got three. Well, I'm good. Let these guys run." And Avery Brundage said, "Boy, do what you're told." Okay, and that's what happened.
Wow.
That's unbelievable.
It is and it isn't.
Really, it is and it isn't. From right, exactly.
100%. That's a perfect answer.
You have a Jewish guy and a black guy, and and they're in Germany. It's at that time, it's insane. So let me ask you this. So how'd you go from print media into broadcasting, Dave? How did that work?
I done a decent amount in school, and then what we now know as CNN headline news. That was its precursor was Satellite News Channel, which was an ABC Westinghouse venture. They were competing against Ted Turner. I got a letter from an agent who had been a theatrical agent in London. He's coming back to the U.S. He sees this opportunity and knows that they need personnel, and the word had gotten out that they want experienced writers, journalists, et cetera, et cetera. So hooked up with this guy, audition, long story short, audition, got the job, and that was my first foray into TV in 1982 October, and and then involved ever since.
Retrospect, great move, because you're seeing.
Hey man,
we're seeing the print just shrink. I mean, I saw the LA Times laid off almost everybody in their sports
right, and about the New York Times, they basically dropped everybody and they use the Athletic now.
Yeah.
And the New York Post, but the Post has shrunk down to almost like it looks like a Marvel comic or DC comic size.
It does.
Paper,
You're right.
Right.
You're right. Yep. You're not kidding. What about then? How did you hook up? You were doing a late night show, and that kind of was the precursor to WFAN, right?
Yeah. Well, Art was, and then I competed against him at WNBC. Art was at ABC. I was at WNBC. Right. With Imus. Imus was on in the morning, and WNBC.
WNBC. That's right.
Yeah, you remember that, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that was huge. That led to MSG and NBC Sports. So it was a nice progression. This led to this, one up, one over, one up, one over, one up, one over, and it worked out really well. So WNBC to MSG Network to NBC Sports, the Temple University Radio doing their play-by-play for football, which led to ESPN, and Westwood One. So it's been a fun journey.
Have you always stayed open to any sport, or have you, or do you really like to focus on certain ones?
There was one time I think I got paid for this. I did a sumo wrestling match.
Oh,
I did a couple of boxing and yeah, I know.
What?
We heard it right.
One fat guy pushed the other fat guy out of the ring.
Yeah, that was that was in Atlantic City, and there's some bad bodies, man. And you get some American dudes, he tries to fill up and try to compete against some of the Japanese guys, and the Japanese guys we saw were probably the double A, and weren't the big boys. They're probably their double A, triple A guys, but it was different. So I basically teed it up to get whoever was working with black guy from.
You had to ad lib that whole call. I mean,
pretty much, like I said, I just sort of teed it up. What are we looking at here? And the guy would go on, and I'd lay out and let him talk, and I just, it was a riot.
That's crazy.
That's officially wide open.
Man. How long were you on FAN for? Because you worked with Coleman, right?
Yeah, Ed Coleman. Yeah, it was September '89 to January '93. Yeah,
so we had a good run. That was right at the beginning of that station, right?
Yeah, they came on in July of '87. First voice was Susan Waldman.
Yeah.
And then on Labor Day or day after Labor Day in '89, they put Eddie and me together. They put Mike and Chris together. Francesa had been with Ed Coleman during some middays, and he had been, bouncing around a little bit. and things took off. They had Howie Rose, he came over. We had a good run. That whole group
Yeah,
has all moved on to other things and retired.
right. That was a good run. You and Coleman were great together.
Yeah,
That's some
thanks.
legendary sports people right there.
Yeah, it was good. It was a lot of fun listening to you guys. That's for sure. So, okay, so now you're getting into some of your sports stuff, your play-by-play. How did you get involved with the Big East, Dave?
Um, let's see. I started doing some college hoops for
Right.
ESPN in February '91, and then coming with the Big East football, the TV package was moving along, and I got a call. I guess it was early '93, and you know, audition. They liked it. They liked my tapes, and I did that for 2 years. I did that '93, '94. And that was great. Met a lot of good people, and it was nice to have Big East football. Being an I-95 guy from Philly. I mean, come on, it was perfect,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
was great to go up. Syracuse had good clubs. I mean, Syracuse, Sonny, your football team since McNabb. Worst thing ever happened was McNabb graduated.
I know. We struggled after that for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, so BC was good. BC's now irrelevant in football on the East Coast. I mean, and I don't think the folks in the South really care about the Boston College basketball or football.
no,
And it's a shame, and Sonny again for Syracuse. It's a shame you guys, you had to go. Football took you to the
I
ACC.
know.
Not seeing it, man.
I know.
It's
I
not the
just met the
same.
new
And
coach. I like the new coach. He's putting a
yeah,
lot of,
I've heard good things. I've
got
heard
a
good
lot of
things.
fire in his belly, and people love him in town. And
Young guy, right?
young guy, Fran Brown, come out of Georgia, good recruiter. We signed a lot of players.
Yeah, he's got a couple of rings on his finger. So yeah, that's how I got hooked up in the Big East, and moved over, started on basketball, and been a great relationship with the Big East for 30 plus years now.
Were you there when Syracuse pulled out because of the football, or no?
I had already moved on. I was doing some
You'd
other
already,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, good.
Yeah, you were out,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. Okay.
yeah. But I saw some great games up there,
no,
and McNabb and Marvin Harrison, just to
Marvin
name a
Harrison,
couple of guys. Yeah,
all-time great.
no doubt.
Oof.
yeah, good football at that time, that's for sure. So, how does it work, Dave? Explain this to me because I've always been curious. You got a guy like yourself who's got a terrific voice, okay? And a lot of these play-by-play guys have good voices. Is that something when you do an audition, are they looking for a certain type of sound, or how do you get hooked up with something like that going from where you were? Even
Um,
even the football gig before you went in, like, did they say, okay, come in and call a mock game or something, or how does that work?
I did audition for a pro team. I had to do that, and the other ones basically I either put something together, or they had seen me doing another sport and said, "Hey, can you do football?" Yeah, hell yeah, I can do football.
Yeah,
So if they see in one venue, they figure, hey, that's going to carry over into the other sport, and I get great knowledge of football, baseball, basketball since I was big,
hmm,
growing up and watching the games, watching my old man play softball in Fairmount Park. He used to take me to games all the time: Phillies, Eagles, Warriors. It's before the Sixers.
right, right.
And so I've been around them my whole life. I was not destined to be a chemist. And I could
Okay,
hear my wife. She 3, 2, 1. She'd hear her laugh in a second now. She's not laughing, but she's heard that line before.
that's funny. Yeah, so being involved with Philly and then being at Temple, that had to be a thrill. I mean, because you're right there in this, you're at home, you're
Yeah,
right in the center of the city. You get to
yeah.
see all your favorite teams play still, even though
Yeah. Yeah, the
you know.
interesting the part of that whole story is that Mr. Cosby helped get me that job. That was before
Oh, really?
everything. Yeah, before
Before
everything
everything
went.
happened, yeah. Wow.
He was top dog in the country.
Yeah.
And FAN was in Carpenter Story Studios in Queens. That's where he did a show.
Right. Right.
And my brother-in-law was
Look up,
working
right.
there, and he had a nice Italian guy. What was it, Frank? Frank Scotti was his right hand guy. Hey, I like that guy in FAN. My brother-in-law. That's my brother-in-law. Hey, have him come down. Yada yada yada. We meet Bill. Blah blah blah. If he can help you in anything, I dropped the Temple line on him. A few days later, hello, Dave. This is Dr. Peter Lear. Of course, Mr. Cosby speaks very well of you. Welcoming you to the Temple family.
Just like that.
That's who
Yes.
you know.
Wow. It's who you know is right. What a
How many times
that's
have you said
unbelievable.
that? How many times you said that, right, Sonny? I mean,
Oh,
Yeah.
said it a lot this weekend,
Yeah.
with the various people and the different connections with either through Bayheim, but we're there because of Bayheim, but there's so many other connections that, like Dave Cerroti, he was
Dave Cerroti. Oh, wow. Yeah,
Dave, right? I told him we
yeah,
were talking to you. He said, say
yeah,
hello. And
yeah.
he was at Seton Hall, so they had Pokey, and Pokey is a comedian in California. My daughter moved out there, so you know, there's all kinds of streams flowing through
Oh,
there,
man.
and
It's unreal. Dave
it's
Cerroti.
pretty
God, I haven't
cool.
seen him in a long time. He's a good guy.
Yeah. He was a manager there when Sonny was
Yes,
playing. Yeah. Now he's a sports information guy, right, Sonny?
he actually is a public relations, and he was doing it for Caldwell Banker. Now he's got his own consulting firm. Does
I
Oh,
public
believe
really?
it.
relations.
Yeah, I believe
Wow.
that.
How about
Yeah.
that? That's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and how he gets the public relations job at Caldwell Banker, the guy says, "Hey, we need somebody here. Send me your resume. I'm leaving town tomorrow." And he gets the job.
Wow.
Hey, man, right, as you know, right time,
Right.
right place.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
you
got
got
to
to be
create your
open
own
and
luck,
willing.
Sonny. You got to create your own luck, right? Take us through some of your Big East memories when you were doing your time at the Big East.
I think, well, one of them, first one that jumps out is 06 when Connecticut loses to George Mason. I mean, that was
I was just
unbelievable.
gonna say that. Yeah. Yeah.
That was, forget about it. Nobody saw that coming. And why would you?
No.
And Connecticut was loaded. And
Well, they were the top seed, right, Dave?
yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
George Mason had to fight like hell just to get into the tournament. And they had to fight to get into their conference tournament.
Conference
And I
tournament.
think
Yeah.
they upset. I want to say they upset Drexel. I think. But anyway, they got there, and that was it. And then it's during at your play at Nova, the Jason Lawson years. With Lapp and those guys, and Kerry
Yeah.
Kittles, Eric Evers, what a shooter.
Yeah.
And I always thought that one year, what was it? You guys lost in the first or second round with the Kerry Kittles crew.
Yep.
And it was such a disappointment. It was a heartbreaker. It was the total flip side from when you guys won it in '85. I was
Right.
working at KYW in Philly, and I still, to this day, I'm still amazed. I mean, what did you guys? You missed 2 shots all night, it seemed like.
Pretty
And
much. I mean, we were 78-6, and we only missed one shot in the second half, and it got blocked by Patrick.
yeah. So I
Crazy.
mean, those two jump out. I wasn't covering them. I tell you what, I did do the game. Remember, you guys played in Dayton,
Yeah.
and Harold Presley hit a deep corner jumper that was huge in that game.
Yep. Yep.
And I remember I was covering that game, and I remember I mentioned that to Rolly, and Rolly goes, "No, it was our defense." I said, "Yeah, but it was a coach. It was a big shot. Come on."
The big shot. The bigger shot was Jensen's layup with like less than 2 minutes to go.
Okay.
That's when he became Harold Jensen instead of he changed his whole attitude changed. He went from being cautious. I don't know if I want to make a mistake, and just saying screw it. I'm just going to go for it, and that's it.
Absolutely,
Worked
absolutely.
out.
I mean,
Worked out
I
pretty
saw a
good.
lot of great Connecticut teams. I saw some great games at Pitt, St. John's with some really good teams. So
Yeah, it was good.
and I heard,
It was good times in the '90s too. I mean, it was
Yes,
Yeah.
there was.
you had at the same on the court at the same time. You had Ray Allen, you had Kerry Kittles, and you had Allen Iverson.
right. And he
That's
he had
pretty
Pearl.
good. And yeah, Pearl was still there at the
Yeah,
early.
Lawrence Moulton, I
right?
think, was in there, wasn't he?
I think so.
Oh, you know what? I did the what game was it where was it Moulton? I think it was Moulton called a timeout he didn't have in the NCAA tournament. Was that I think I remember I'm pretty sure it was in Austin.
Oh, wow.
There was it was not quite as bad as Weber, but there was some I seem to remember that there was a timeout called and there was a problem and they lost the possession and they had the ball. Oh, it was just all fouled up. And it was the first
I'm
or
gonna need
second
help.
round.
I don't have that one in my memory. So that
Yeah,
conveniently
that I was gonna say that
that
that's a good one
conveniently
too. I
got washed
flushed.
away.
Yeah, yeah.
You
But yeah,
you
so
called
many
some
great
pretty
teams.
spectacular games though in your career. I mean, you had 2 perfect games you called.
Which is
Two
insane.
which is insane. That's right. And one of them you got bumped by Joe Buck and Tim McCarver. The only place they saw it was in Chicago and Seattle, right?
Well, what happened? They came to us the last couple 3 outs, and that's when they finally came to us. When it, like Philip Umber, it was April 12 was it of 2012, and
Yeah.
yeah, this kid came out of nowhere. He'd been a journeyman, he'd been with the Mets, and really
Right.
basically was never heard from again. And then Felix Hernandez throws one later on in August.
Yeah,
In
Hernandez. Who
Seattle.
was the first one?
Philip Umber,
Umber,
Humber.
Yep.
Yeah, and
He
that
went to Chicago White Sox, right?
yeah, with the White Sox. So what was it? We've got like 25, 26 perfect games. He's got one of them.
Wow.
I mean, in the
Yep.
history of baseball. And then Felix's was super duper memorable. The Mariners didn't have a good team. Remember when Carlton? Well, you probably do remember this. Steve Carlton won 27 of like 58 games or 59 games of the Phillies that one year. Well,
Yeah.
Felix was a similar type version, and it was an event every time he took them out. He throws a perfecto, and that's one of the great moments in Seattle baseball history.
So
Yeah, he had a special relationship, it looks like, with the rest of the players.
They had that in the crowd too. We used to hold up those K cards and everything. It was
So
a big
Dave, I
strikeout
saw a
guy.
quote. I saw a quote that you had, and I want to ask you about it because everybody gets caught up in this when a perfect game is going on. Nobody wants to talk to the pitcher. They don't want to jinx the guy. They don't want to ruin it. And sometimes the announce team gets into that same rut, but you didn't do that. You said, "Hey,
I
this
don't
guy's
believe
got
it.
it going on," and you got to report what you see, right, Dave?
And there's a key word: report. And you don't want people. You want people. You want to bring more people into the tent. You're not. It's not like you're in fourth grade and hey, don't copy off me. Yeah,
Yep.
that's not going to work. I mean, you know what? At last I looked, we're in the game of broadcasting.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to let people know. It's like,
Which
yo,
is sending it out. That's right.
And if you saw somebody, something good was happening here, somebody was doing a charitable, event or something, and he's, hey, come on, take a look, invite them in, or you watch it. How many times have you, hey, something's good on TV, hey, you're gonna come watch this. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Ozzie Smith gave me grief one time. We were playing at a golf event, and he says, "You talked about it." I said, "Ozzie, what you guys do in the dugout has nothing to do with what I'm saying." I said, "Let's." If I had that kind of power, you know how many rings I would have? I would have more. I would have more rings than Yogi Berra and Bill Russell combined. If announcers had that kind
Right.
of power. I mean, Bill Russell had 11, Yogi had 10. I mean, come on,
Yep.
get
Right.
out of here.
But truthfully, baseball is one of the most superstitious sports from the player's perspective.
I don't mind spitting
ever
into the
seen.
wind and pulling on Superman's cape on that one. I really don't.
Right. Yeah.
Nice Jim Croce reference right there, man.
Hey,
A Villanova
Philadelphia
guy,
guy.
Sonny.
And you
Villanova
don't mess
guy.
around with Jim, baby.
And
right.
he was a Nova guy. I knew he was a Philly guy.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't know he went to Nova.
Guy. There you go. There you go.
One of a couple of great lines.
Not only had two perfect games, you also had two no-nos too.
Yeah, that year.
And one of them had like what, 5 pitches they did it?
Yeah, we had a 6-pitcher combined no-no first Friday in June of 2012. And then I think at 15, Sashi Iwakuma threw a no-no against Baltimore. Yeah, but it's interesting when I talk to kids and they say, "Oh, what, you threw 2 perfect games?" I say, "Let me tell you something. That's not going to get me on the subway when I get back to New York." But it is a nice distinction.
Right. Yeah. Well, and listen, there's only so many of them. I think you said, was it 26 perfect games?
Something like that, yeah.
Not only did you see them, you called the game for 2 of them.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
That's a pretty good.
Very few
pretty good
people can say
percentage.
they've even seen it. You called them.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And on the football side, you did
incredible.
some AFC championship games and some NFC championship games.
Yeah.
Though
I've seen Brady and
you had the Jet Steeler game, right? Is that the one you had?
Yeah, there was one there. That's the Jets.
That had to be a long time ago, Dave. I'm not trying to date you, man, but since the Jets have been in that game.
Hey, man. Yeah.
You go back to Rex Reed?
Rex Ryan. Yeah, Rex was the coach and a kicker. Let's see, we were in Pittsburgh. It was at the closed end of the stadium, and he hooked a couple of field goals that could have won it for him. Wow. Yeah, and then I saw Brady and the Patriots win an AFC title game at their place because I think it was a fake field goal, and the Ravens, a tight end from Wisconsin, where my son went to school, youngest son went to school, he dropped a sure touchdown in the end zone. and they later had an opportunity to kick a field goal and missed it, and New England holds on to win. It goes to the Super Bowl.
Right. So during your NFL games, give me some good memories of some of the stuff that you did in that time. You
I
were in
got
the
I got
NFL
I
for
got to work with some
Sunday night
unbelievable.
football, right?
Yeah, Sunday night, Sunday afternoon. Yeah, I mean, I got to work with James Lofton for the
Yeah.
most part. I worked with Bob Trumpy, John Riggins for a few games, Doc Walker.
John Riggins, did you say?
Oh yeah, John Riggins. He's a hoot.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah,
He
he's
was
a
rough
hoot.
and tough,
character, yeah.
man.
Good player too, man. Hall
Right.
of Famer.
He was
Yeah.
hard nosed. Redskins. Oh,
And the Jets before that. Yeah, he was big time. Uh, you name them. I did a bunch of Brady and Rogers games. Um, I s- I saw a game the one year the year the Bears went to the Super Bowl. Let's see, Tony. Yeah, they lose to Indy, but I remember we did a game in Chicago against Atlanta. It was a week before Christmas. I'll never forget. Doc Walker was our sideline guy. He had won a Super Bowl ring with the Redskins, and he's in the tunnel. Let's throw it down to Doc Walker. Dave, it's like 2 degrees down here in Chicago, and the Falcons. They really seem reluctant to come out on the field for warm-ups, and I don't blame them because I'm not coming out at the tunnel. So Michael Vick. Here's a Devin Hester. I saw him on a missed field goal, like a 55, 60-yard attempt by the Giants. And it came up, it got into the end zone, and he took it out and ran it back for a touchdown. There was another one where there's an Eagles-Giants game, and who's my man that just retired? The crazy guy, number 10.
Deshaun.
Yeah.
Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, exactly. Deshaun Jackson. And I'll never forget it. It was a directional punt to the left, and he picked his way through the Giants punt return team. It was amazing.
That game, the anniversary of that game was just the other day, and my son was actually at that game. My brother's a big Giants fan. He took him to the game with him, and he's like, "Come on, do you want to leave?" He goes, "I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not, even though my team's getting killed, I'm not leaving." And Deshaun ran right at him in the end zone. It was great. He said it was plus the 3 or 4 plays before that, they had the onside kick recovery. They, yeah. So that was something.
Dave, talk about your preparation, because I mean,
Oh.
Sean McDonough's the same thing. Like the basketball, and then they're baseball, and then they're on the, So what? Just talk like, okay, they're calling you today, and they're saying, okay, today's Sunday. You're doing a game Wednesday. You're going to do Syracuse Villanova game. What kind of things do you put into your prep?
Put in the basics, and then I look at the last 4 or 5 games. Who's hot, or if he's cold, and then I try to keep all the team stats in front of me. I probably won't use them. Vince Scully used to always say, and Enberg too. And I used to grill them or ask them questions all the time. He says, "Yeah, prepare to the max, but you may only use 10% of it. But there's always that one game that happened to me once where I'll just do perfunctory kind of stuff, and sure enough, a game blew up, and I didn't have enough, and that never happened again." Talking to the coaches, if you can catch a couple of players, how's it going? What's trending? What's hot? What's not? Those things are important. And then we have a production meeting. We figure out, hey, here's the storylines we want to follow, and boom, we get after it. But Sean and I probably share the same, desire to have the comfortable feeling of knowing that you put in the work to prepare for the game. I mean, It's basically the answer. The only thing you don't have is the answer to who's going to win, but you have to prepare for what could happen during the course of the game. And you want to have interesting stories, and you want to personalize things too. I mean, it's not like a video game, and it's just the figures. I mean, these are real people who have ups, downs, ins and outs.
Yep.
They've got good, like anybody who's human. I mean, they get the good side, their bad side, and I'm not in this capacity. I'm not trying to bury anybody, but sometimes you do have to tell some hard truths, and you deal with it.
Well, Raph has like a
different?
little legal pad that he's famous for,
right.
having this little yellow
Yeah.
pad. I mean, do you have
Yeah.
little notes yourself?
Yeah. I don't have pictures of them right now, but I have. My football boards would be about 3 feet wide by 2. And the basketball, what do I use now? I use a manila folder and make it vertical. And I have all 12, 13 guys, running down like this and all blocked out with their numbers, their names, height, weight, high school, accomplishments, family members who played, and then little knickknacks that you pick up. And then these days you can Zoom with coaches as opposed to, and or go to shoot around so you can catch some stuff. And I like to get the feel for guys like that. And
Is
you
the
mentioned
prep
Raph.
civil? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean
No,
to
I was
cut
just going to say, you mentioned Raph, and that's one of the only real bummer I had this season in college, doing college hoops. I didn't get a chance to do a game with Raph. I mean, there were some years where I'd do 10, 15 games with him. He's the best.
Yeah, he's great. Him and Timmy Brown seem to be Timmy Brando.
And Brando, yeah.
Timmy Brando and Raph are buddies of ours, and whenever I see them at a game, I always go over and say hello to those guys. They're both of them are fantastic, and funny guys. I've been around Raph a long time.
Oh my God, right?
And Jay, we had it was funny because Brian Harrington has had a charity event called Each One Counts. We had a golf.
That sounds familiar. I've heard of it. Yeah.
So he had at the thing, we had Mike Fratello, we had Coach Mass, we had Jay, we had Tommy Pecora.
Oh my God. How's he
doing?
doing?
And we had Raftery. Okay. And it was me and Brian from the 85 team. And the thing is over. It's like 10 o'clock at night. He goes, "What are you doing, Neverson?" I said, "I'm going home." He goes, "No, you're not. I'm putting the pod on." He goes in the back and he puts the pod on. And I sat there for another 2 hours listening to those guys tell stories. It's unbelievable. That's the most fun we've had with those guys. It's that kind of.
I don't know who gave him the name, but people call Raph Uncle One More. Remember, we did a game in Syracuse one time, and we come out. I guess it was a 7 o'clock game, and I think it was a 7 o'clock game, and we go to Grimaldi's to get something to eat, and of course that turns into 3 hours. So now it's coming up on 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Hey, let's go over to this place. So we go over to this one place, and I say, "We'll have one more." So I get up and I say, "Hey, coach, I gotta go." "Sit down, you wuss." I said, "Coach, I gotta do WFAN first thing in the morning." "I sit down, have one more." And then he gets up, he's rocking.
Yeah.
He's the governor. He's stone cold sober when he wakes up. He doesn't get crushed, but
Nope.
he's just like he wakes up the next day and like nothing happened.
Yep, that's exactly him. It's funny because he's, like I said, he's been around the program for years and years. And at the beginning, since we've been doing the show, you hear about a lot of stuff that happened back in the day. And
oh God,
and with Dave Gavitt, Coach Mass and Raph didn't get along so well. So they had a golf thing that they did, and he put Raph in the cart with Coach Mass, and that's how they became buddies, and they were friends right up to the day Coach passed away.
Yeah. Did you ever run into Mike Cohn, who was the SID at Manhattan, mid to late 70s, then had his own PR firm? He used to do that all the time. He would bring people together, and they thought they were mortal enemies, and that he'd be running these golf tournaments. He did the exact same thing. Same thing. Boom.
Well, sometimes it didn't work out though, Dave, because
agreed.
Mass and Rick Pitino didn't get along, and Pitino would not get in the golf cart. He walked all 18 holes. He wouldn't get in the cart. Yep. I don't know what the discrepancy was or what the problem was, but
speaking of Rick, how about what he said the other day?
Unbelievable. Don't get Sonny started. That's all I'll tell you, Dave.
I couldn't listen. I couldn't.
How do you do that in this age of social media and everything, where everybody is looking to, it's one thing back in the day, you can maybe say something and the whole world wouldn't hear it. But in 30 seconds, everybody knew he threw his whole team under the bus.
Well, the thing was a post game, and you knew that stuff was going to go out. And, the most unenjoyable season I've ever had. These guys can't play. They can't move laterally. They can't do this. And then comes out 36 hours later. I didn't kill anybody in my team. I was looking. Come on.
Yeah. Can't have
I had guys out here in Arizona asking, hey, you're a Big East guy. What'd you think of Patino? I said the same thing you did. I like Rick, but come on.
Yeah, you can't do that.
So speaking of coach, You had to have had some experiences with some of the best coaches in the country covering the Big East basketball. What are some you
Oh
got
man,
some of your memories from? Well, there's Coach Boeheim, there's Coach Calhoun. Lou is still at
yeah,
Carnesecca was there, right? Talk
yeah.
about some of
Louis
those.
always treated me well, and I remember another time, my wife and I had a little company where we did media coaching, and we were up in Connecticut, and Jimmy's in his office, and what was it? Kyle was I can't remember his last name. Kyle was at the SID. We're waiting. He has us waiting in this room, and then Kyle comes and says, "Coach, will see you now." My wife said, "What are we seeing? The King of England? What the hell is this?" He's a basketball coach. I'd known Jimmy for years at that point, but it was just so funny that my wife was, "The coach will see you now." He,
Yeah.
let me think. So many guys. Geez, Whiz. No run-ins with anybody, but just it's just meeting these guys and shooting a breeze with them before games. And the other thing we used to have basketball writers luncheons at the late and lamented Mama Leone's at
I'm a Leone, Sin
just
City.
east of 49th Street, just off of 8th Avenue. And another raft story where I think it was the one story Krzyzewski was at Army, and we later know that we learned that his name is pronounced Krzyzewski, but at that point, we said, "All right, Mike Krzyzewski, come up and talk about your team," and Raf used to give, "Hey, Army, hey, Army, you could hear all of the from the out, get out of here." And as time moved on, and I did the show with Coach K for 19 years, and he said he used to hate it going in there because all the Italian waiters would they would cater to Louis. I mean, Louis would speak Italian to him. Right. What do you expect? And he got the best. He got the first serving, the best serving, the most wine, the whole thing. He
That's it.
still has the answer for that. Right? Holy shit!
He's still with
PJ.
it, Dave. We sat with him, we interviewed him at his kitchen table, and
No
then
way.
we hung out with him for like an hour and a half.
Oh yeah.
And further to that, we came back like 5 weeks later and took him out for lunch. We had so
I
much fun with him. Oh, he was great, man.
I was at his 99th the party on January 5th at
Yeah.
Lenny's Clam Bar.
99.
And that was a blast. And
Yeah.
a lot of old timers were there. I was really disappointed Patino didn't come over and didn't bring any players over. The year before, Mike Anderson did. He came in
Right.
and said some words, and it was nice to see Mel Davis was there.
Yeah, Mel was there. Yeah.
Killer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was of the most recent guy, Lou Del Colo, who was a trainer for that team, those Louis teams for a long time. We had a good time. It was great.
Yeah, it's always fun to do that kind of stuff.
But
Let me
Louis still has it. He still has it, man. It's amazing.
He was
right?
telling his first game was at the Garden against Jim Valvano's dad, Rocco.
Yeah.
And he's telling us
told the whole
who his guys were,
like it was
he
yesterday.
named the team.
Yeah, and where they were from, and who did this, and this guy did that. He was good at
every
this.
guy.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Yep. He was telling some great. Listen, he was telling some really good stories, Dave.
As only he can.
As only he can, and we're hysterical laughing, and just his reactions to everything, just even the stuff going around his house, it was crazy.
And it's funny, like we didn't know, okay, how short-term memory, long-term memory, where do we go? We certainly want to make him look good. We don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
As we're talking, this was like off camera. He starts telling a story about this person, and he had mentioned it before, and the one guy that was in the kitchen says, "Coach, they're not going to know that." And he goes, "Yeah, we just talked about him 20 minutes ago." And I was like, "Well, that short-term memory is pretty damn sharp."
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? Like, and we're worried about this. It's sharper than me,
Yeah, sign me up.
Yeah. I couldn't. It was crazy too, Dave. I I wasn't sure what we were walking into when we did the thing. So I
Right.
called, I spoke to like 8 or 9 guys, Ronnie Stewart, Billy Winnington, Matt Brust,
Yeah.
all these
Yeah.
guys, Sheldon. I said, give me something that's going to trigger him to tell me something. So they each gave me a little, little bits and pieces of a story, but not the whole thing. He goes, say this, and he'll go on about a story. And that's what we did. It worked out great. Oh, it was so much fun. That was,
And he invited you into his home. That's pretty
we were
cool.
in his kitchen. And you know what? I
Yeah.
called Ronnie because Ronnie and I know each other from high school. So I called Ron Stewart and I said, hey, I just had lunch with your coach in his kitchen. He goes, what? I said, yeah, we were sitting at the kitchen table. He goes, I've never been in his house. I said, well, I can set it up for you, Ron, if you want to come.
We'll take care of you.
Yeah, we'll take care
That's
of
a
you.
riot.
You know?
That's a
So
riot.
you mentioned the guy, Dave. Tell us, because I was going to ask you about Coach K. So you were there. You pretty much left that show right when he retired, right?
Let's see. Last
year
year, let's see. He's retired. What, a couple, 3 years now? Yeah, that's
No,
about
this
right.
is
Yeah.
his second year. This is second
Okay.
year.
Yeah. So this is the first year I'm not doing the show. So we did like 18, 19 years. He said, "Hey,
So-
we did the show longer than most people are married." For crying out loud.
Right. I mean,
Um,
tell us about that, because he's well known. You think he got out because he was burnt out, or did he see what was coming down the
I think a
tracks?
little of everything. I mean, I think it was sometimes you had that thing. Hey, it's time. And then I think like a lot of guys. I mean, Roy, and now Saban,
Jay.
Boeheim, get Jay. Well, Jay's got 2 national champs. He's got more money than he'll ever need. And this NIL thing is, and the transfer portal is the wild, wild west times 100.
Yeah.
And I don't think they need it. But we had a good run, and I basically played Ed McMahon to him. I would tee him up, and I didn't say hey-oh or anything like that, but
Right.
the because of his name, his cachet, we got everybody. I mean, we got NASCAR winners all the time, and guys would come on and they were great. All the basketball guys, all the football guys, the baseball guys. Bryce Harper and Mike Trout grew up huge Duke fans. And then when I would see them later on in the season, and they were like, dude, that was really cool talking to Coach K. It was great.
Yeah.
We had Kobe, Chuck, LeBron,
Wow.
every coach you can think of, Rick Barnes, Kelvin
Sure.
Sampson. I mean, up and down, the whole thing.
What is he as stoic? With you, because he comes across as being so professional and so stoic. And does he have any kind of a sense of humor?
Oh, he's got a hell of a sense of humor, and he can
I
cuss
thought
as well
so.
as we do.
Behind
And
the
he
scenes, I thought
he
so.
cusses as well as we do. So
Oh,
I mean,
really? That's pretty good then, Dave. That's pretty good. Yeah.
I've heard that from many people.
He can get
Really?
after it. Oh, he can get after
Wow.
it, yeah. And but he's very good to me. I tell you what, when I found out this Mariner job was open, and I called him. I said, "Yo, man, might need a little help here. Who do I call? I'll take care of it." Done.
Yeah.
And he had one of it, and Mike, one of his guys was a Washington guy too. So and had entree to a higher up in the organization. So it was, again, going back to what we talked about before, son, connections.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine.
I'd like to think my tape had something to do with it as well, but it didn't hurt to have these guys say, "Hey,
Right.
sock it in on this guy." You know what I mean?
A friend of mine, high school coach. He wanted to get a job. It was in Casanova, small town outside of Syracuse, a girls' varsity job. He had worked Coach K's camp for 10 years. Coach K calls that high school and talked almost 2 hours to the people for this guy, who he only knew as a coach that would come down and work the camps and was loyal to him for doing the camps. And he paid him back in spades. And I was like, for that girls' varsity job? And he said, "Oh yeah." I would never doubt it another second in my life. Just
I had a friend. I'm trying to think whose kid was battling cancer. He subsequently beat it, but my friend said his kid was a big Duke fan. I said, could you get Coach K to do a little video? So he did like 30, 40 seconds. Get well, Luke. And here's what you got to do. Da, 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 da. Kid was all fired up and everything worked out, and he wound up beating it.
He was tight with Jimmy V too. He was right there at the
Oh,
end with him.
Right.
oh, he and
You know,
Dick, he and Vitale. Oh, no
Dick
doubt.
Vitale too. Yeah.
One of the Jimmy V. I think yeah, it was my first second week as an intern at the Inquirer. We were assigned to do a story on summer camps for basketball, and I don't know how, why, but we called Jim Valvano. He was at Bucknell, and that's where I first met him. And
Yeah.
then subsequently, then I'm at the Daily News in the 78, 70, what, 79, 80. They really had it going on with Rulin and that crew. And even before that, oh, who was there? A couple of really good. Gary Brokaw, yeah, Gary Brokaw was there beforehand. Brokaw, what did Brokaw coach at Notre Dame?
Hamilton was there too, right? That was
Yeah, a good player.
yeah,
Kevin
yeah.
Hamilton, nice
Kevin
player.
Hamilton. Yeah. Yeah, he was pretty good. He's a Long Island guy.
Yeah. So yeah, I go back with Jimmy V and he and Mike were very tight. Yeah.
Yeah. Mike's done a lot of things behind the scenes that really nobody knows about. And
Yeah. Keep it
one
undercover.
that
Yeah.
struck me personally was I had my cousin had two sons that went to Duke, and they were Cameron crazies. Okay. So they were the ones that they had the Viking helmet. That was their thing. So now what happens is a bunch of friends go out with my cousin's kid, and they go left, he goes right, and he cuts through the student center to go through the loading dock, and he slipped and fell, hit his head, and that was it. So they gave out 2,000 Viking helmets for the next game after he passed, and
Oh,
Coach K brought everybody in the locker room, my cousin, his wife, and they signed the guys signed the ball for them, and really made everybody feel as good as they possibly could considering the circumstances. So that's
that's
just being
extraordinary.
humanizing the guy like that. I mean, that's he's a good guy as far as I'm concerned. I
Oh,
just was
same here.
curious because he portrays one way in the media like a lot of people do. And then I was just curious to how he was behind the scene.
Yeah, he's cool. He's cool.
So we're getting close to the end here, Dave. I got one more question for you.
What
I
do you
see
got?
you're coaching young broadcasters. I was on your website today. All right. Talk about that for a minute. How you working with guys, and what do you say to a young guy that's coming up and wants to be a broadcaster?
Yeah, well, we had a little bit of experience. We were doing media coaching for athletes and how to deal with the media. Then when these guys, a lot of guys, they see me, and this happens a lot of guys. It's not hardly unique to me, but they see a guy that that's maybe has a style that they like, and they just want to get some tips. I mean, I did it. I mean, I didn't think I was a Scully or Enberg, but when I had an opportunity to talk to those guys and pick their brains for a few minutes,
Yeah.
even for a couple of minutes, it was plenty. So it's a paying forward because, and I know, and being one of the few black guys doing this at this level, and I hear from, I don't care if you're black, white, whatever. I mean, I've dealt with a
Right.
lot of kids, but if they reach out and just the right thing to do. You take 2 minutes and listen to it. Hey, this was good. This was good. This was not good. You want to work on this, that kind of stuff. I'm not breaking anybody's. It hasn't gotten to a point where I need to start charging people. Although I probably, if I start beating a drum, I could make it go like that.
Yeah.
And that very well, very well may happen. But point being, you like to help. And when I was coming up, I didn't have this, and there was nobody to call, and the ability to reach out to people now with the technology that we have.
Mhm.
Why not take advantage of it? And I've made a lot of friends. You probably saw on the website that one slide there. It's like I got like 8, 9 guys that I've worked with,
Yeah.
over the years, and a lot of guys to this day. Credit, hey man. Matter of fact, there's a guy, John Sadak, who's with the Reds, and he would send a tape, and I'd critique it and everything. And another time he called, and he was bitching and moaning and complaining about this, that, and everything. And I sort of lit him up a little bit. He subsequently, after I'm in a supermarket, my phone buzzes. He gets a job with the Reds, and the first thing he says, "I want to thank you for reading me the riot act that one time when I was feeling sorry for
Yeah.
myself." So I mean, it's a lot of satisfaction. You get a lot of satisfaction out of it, and you can understand why people who are teachers, have careers in teaching. You get that kind of return on your investment.
Yeah, it's pretty, and listen, it's always good to give back to a game or a profession that's been good to you. I mean, and obviously it's been great for you and your family all these years that you've been doing this. So and you're good at it. And why wouldn't somebody want to listen to you? I mean, that's all good stuff. So
Yeah.
kudos to you for that. That's great, man.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks.
So, hey, listen, we had a blast talking to you. Thanks so much for giving us your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Yeah, you're
hanging with
welcome.
us. It's just like we were talking at the garden like a few months
I was going to say that at the Big East Media Day. That was a lot of fun.
That's right.
That
Yeah,
was
it was great.
Just
That
like
was great.
hanging at Del Sandro's, having a
Hey,
Well, I
cheese
wish
whiz.
we were hanging at Delisandro's.
Give me the cheese wit. Yeah,
Cheese
give me
whiz,
the
That's right.
wit.
That's right, man. That's right. That's right.
Hey,
That's
boys,
fun.
enjoyed it, man. Thanks a lot. You guys be
Right.
good. We'll see you down
All
the
right.
road. All right.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
having.
Joe.
Thanks for coming
All
on.
right,
All
you
right,
bet.
pal.
All right, you're welcome.
Take care.
Take care.
So Sonny and I have been talking with our special guest today, Dave Sims, the voice of the Seattle Mariners, also with the Big East for years and years. Thanks a lot, Dave, for coming back out. The Big East Rewind was produced and directed by Nick Chico Chorus and Daryl Gurney. You can catch us on all social media by putting Big East Rewind in the search bar. And also, if you want to get some stuff on what we're doing and what's going on with the Big East Rewind, by all means, go to our website at www.bigeastrewind.com. We'd like you to subscribe and share it with your friends, and have a great night.
Thanks, folks.